call to order
Yes.
the Cumberland County Commissioners Workshop for February 12th. Rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'd like to call this order and first open the floor to public comment.
My name's Rick Bernino. I'm CAT representatives. I don't know the appropriate time for me to speak. I see CAT is being discussed, but I'm not specifically on the agenda. I have some things to share about CAT. Would you like me to share them now or share them at the CAT section of the agenda?
I think the latter would be perfect.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Hearing none, I'll call on myself and Mick Burkett and Kirk Stoner to talk about additional FMP training. FMP is a consulting firm that we brought in to do the paper performance evaluation criteria training. They're doing a great job. We finished the major training for everybody's gone through it at least once in our group sessions, and there's been a considerable amount of one-on-one work. We have a survey that we did of our department heads, and there was a general feeling, not by everyone, but by a significant number of people, that some additional training would be needed of a different sort than what he anticipated when we signed the original agreement. We based it on the survey results, came up with a program of a combination of group and individual training in a number of different settings that FMP agreed to. They gave us a estimate that they shared with the commissioners. And they gave us credit for what they had originally, for part of what they originally included in their budget proposal. That total would be an additional $18,579.66. We also plan on doing additional training for self-evaluation for staff, as well as rater consistency training later on. Those, however, I believe, Kirk for this would be eligible for early intervention program funds to cover that. So the proposal from commissioners is for the additional $18,000 to finish out this round. I think this is a question of making sure we do things right. This is based on the survey we got, and represents the opinion of our department heads, who are the key folks in making all this work. Keith, Nick, anything you want to add?
No, that DCD grant we have to apply for prior to entering into agreement for the second half.
So this is credit on the town hall meetings, as I read that.
Correct.
Okay.
So that's applied to the total.
Right.
So in other words, the additional funding to cover this is not necessarily assured, or we have an expectation that we should be able to receive
The initial
funding to
need,
cover the training.
the way that DCD works, the initial training, we cannot go through them for because you have to apply for the grant before you do a contract. So that immediately, the 18,000 number is not DCD. The second two pieces, the self-assessment and the rate of consistency, we will be able to, we have enough time to put into that grant and get some funds to offset that.
Okay, so I guess my question is this covered then by the 18,500? Is that covered by grant funding or not?
No.
The other piece of that too, Jim, it is competitive, so there's no guarantee we'll get the funding.
Any other question or comments? Hearing none. Let's move on to item number 4.
Item number 4, we received a request from the Cumberland County Municipal Authority for the reappointment of Dennis Goddard for a 5-year term, understanding that no appointments can be made until there is a vacancy on the authority. So that is why it's coming to to you for consideration today, and a motion will be made on Tuesday for that appointment.
I have a question on that. So is Denny a sitting member now?
He's indicated, I will read, indicated his desire to remain in his role with the authority. Please accept this letter as a request of the commissioners. It is signed by Hubert Dory, representing the municipal authority. I can give everyone a copy of this.
I don't have it, but it's probably in my inbox. I just didn't get it yet. Well, I have a question on that because, you know, unless there's been a break in his tenure, he's been on the board for quite a long time. He was appointed to that, I think, several decades ago, if my memory's correct. I'd like to know how long he's been there and how many terms this would be for him. Since this has become an issue even recently. We had, you know, one individual who was rejected for renewal and told that he should seek a third term. I think unless there's been a break in any service, probably well past that. So maybe when these appointments come up, we should systematically look at how long folks have been there and the options for cycling people on and off boards regularly with a little more consistency.
Okay, so we're gonna try to get that information before Tuesday's meeting, I guess, is that what we say and so forth. You know, I think one of the other things that needs to be, you know, understood with respect to all of these appointments is you're trying to find volunteers who are, you know, willing and able to serve in these positions. It's not all that easy, as we found out from time to time with respect to appointment stuff. But in any event, I have no problem looking into, you know, the issue, and I guess discuss it further on Tuesday.
Any further comment? Move on, please, then to item number 5, Resolution 2015-4, approval of VALIC 401A plan documents for voluntary separation program.
Commissioners, I am not asking for an action today on this item. I'm here to give you an update on what will possibly be presented to you on Tuesday. There is one final piece that we need to put in place for the voluntary separation program implementation, and that consists of the authorization of the VALIC IRS plan documents. These documents ensure that we are IRS compliant with the VSP plan and serves as the agreement between VALIC and the county for VALIC to provide the third-party administrative services. As you might recall, with the retirement board, when we went through the process of updating the retirement plan to make sure that was IRS compliant, one of the things that we needed for our documentation was a resolution by the board adopting the plan. This is the same thing. It would be an approval of the agreement plus a resolution implementing the agreement. This whole process, as we had discussed throughout, is a very time-sensitive process. The forms have been reviewed by an outside benefit attorney. We received their comments back on Tuesday. It is our hope that we would have the packet through internal review and ready for your approval at Tuesday's meeting. If for some chance something unforeseen comes up and they are not, then we'll have the item pulled from the agenda. So that's it.
Okay, any questions or comments from Bob? Thank you, Bob. Moving on then to item number 6, the capital budget. We were in receipt of a memo from Bill Jones from Capital Area Transit, dated September 4th, but I believe we received it later in the year, that outlined in response to a request we made CAT's plans for their 5-year capital budget. Based on analysis done by our staff who've been working around the CAT issue, there are a number of 4 principal items that came up. A lot of it revolves around the fact that the Phase 2 regionalization study is in the process of being completed, about to be released, and whether or not the plans put forth by CAT in terms of capital budget are in sync with that, and possible developments here for that. The items, I think, were outlined in terms of the concerns about plans for moving forward in exploring the possibility of building a new facility, land acquisition, unspecified expenditures for capital items, and basically requesting that these things be deferred pending the release, discussion, and action, if any, upon PennDOT's revitalization phase 2 study. The ask of the commissioners to be presented with a draft of a letter from our commissioners to the CAT board expressing our desire to hold off on moving forward on these things and raising those questions in the context of the pending release of the regionalization phase 2 study. Kurt, Mike, any comments?
I think you captured it, Larry. You know, it's not that these expenditures wouldn't be valid. I think it's just looking at them in the context of the regionalization study, that we don't want to have expenditures happen that may be negated by, you know, improvements that can come through the regionalization study.
Other questions, other comments?
Just one, I think that I did see an early draft of this letter, but I see that's not included in the packet, so we're going to have a copy of that for a re-review prior to Tuesday's meeting. Okay, thank you.
Mike, are you going to say anything?
No, I don't have any comment on the capital budget.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'm one of, as you know, your 2 CAT appointees. I do want to state for the record that I was not aware that this was going to be an agenda item until about 60 minutes ago. So in the future, I would respectfully request if CAT is going to be an agenda item, or if you want any updates, I would hope that both Mike and I would be apprised of that, so that we can both be here to assist you as you endeavor to serve the citizens of Cumberland County. I was asked a little while ago to be on the nominating committee to nominate, the officer positions for this coming year. That nominating committee consists of Kathy Possinger from the city, Elizabeth Binion from Dauphin County, and myself. They did ask me if I wanted to serve as vice chair of the organization. I declined that, and because I have lobbied for some time to actually have it incorporated in our bylaws that the 3 most critical officer positions, the chair, the vice chair, and the treasurer's position, be regularly rotated between the 3 ownership representatives from the 3 ownership jurisdictions. Given the past fiscal challenges to CAT, I felt it was most incumbent that Mike Clapsaddle serve as treasurer. And so I lobbied my colleagues on that committee, and he has in fact been nominated and positioned as treasurer, and I think that will well serve CAT, as this is the first time in our history that we've had someone with Mike's vast public sector accounting experience in that position. And all the things I'm sharing with you, I've shared with Mike. Just a few days ago, I received an invitation from Eric B. Gall through Bill Jones for Elizabeth Binion and I to serve with Eric on a committee that would select a consultant for the eventual facilities process. I notified Mike of this, and I sent, and this was sent yesterday, so I was not aware of this meeting. I sent it back indicating my willingness to serve on that committee, conditioned on a couple things. One, that the entire board be apprised of this committee and offer the opportunity for input prior to us initiating anything, and probably most importantly, which you just mentioned, that anything that we do be done in concert and with respect to the regional consolidation study.
Is this consultant one out on RFP? I mean, how are you going to find this?
PennDOT has
A laundry list.
consultants, and
I mean,
PennDOT is offering
whatever.
to pay for the consultant. Before I responded to Eric, I called Toby Falver. For those who don't know, Toby's the Deputy Secretary for Area Transit for PennDOT, and asked Toby what was his opinion of us moving forward with the selection of a consultant right now from PennDOT's perspective. Toby said that he didn't have any problem with it because it would be done in concert with the regional consolidation study, which will be presented to PennDOT this coming Tuesday, the 17th. So that's how close it is. So the consolidation study will be in PennDOT's hands long before we select a consultant. In my opinion, CAT does need a new facility, but the construction, the design of that facility is going to depend on what the regional consolidation study does. Mike and I have had this conversation. We might even eventually want to consider alternate facilities in Cumberland County to reduce deadhead miles. You know, just simple storage facilities, so we're not running buses from Shippensburg to Harrisburg, we're not running buses, the circulators from Carlisle to Harrisburg. So
Or repurpose of use of buildings that are,
repurpose of use, I'm not talking in Cumberland County maintenance facility, I'm just talking storage areas where buses can be stored to protect them from the elements, but reduce, and that would have to be an accounting study to see what the cost benefit is to facilities like that. Another thing that I've worked on is no matter what happens with this consolidation study, we're really not going to be fully effective if we don't have relationships and trust built up with our sister agencies. So about a month ago, I invited Ray Rosen, the chair of the Rabbit Transit Board, and Eric Ugal, the chair of the CAT Board, to breakfast. And they had a good meeting, and they have subsequently met again, and they're going to continue to meet and discuss items that we can move on immediately. Maybe not with the grand scopes and scales of the regionalization study, but, you know, if we just pick some low-hanging fruit and learn that we can work with each other, maybe that, if you will, greases the skids for bigger, the higher fruit and bigger apples to come. So those are a few things. But again, I would respectfully request, if CAT is going to be discussed, if I could be notified, because I simply did not know that it was going to be discussed this morning.
Quick question though. I commend you for your response to the invitation to be part of this committee, but in your response, it implies that perhaps there was something unclear or perhaps unauthorized or unorthodox about the manner in which this subcommittee was being formed, i.e. the rest of the board was not aware of this, it hadn't been approved, there was no vote taken on it, or could you just maybe elaborate on that a little bit?
As I said, I just received an invitation from our chair. I spoke with Toby first to see if he felt it was all right, and I put it in writing that I wanted the entire board to be notified and offered the opportunity to have input on this prior to us initiating any kind of work. And if you recall, I don't know, maybe a year ago, I was kind of personally caught a little off guard when the presentation was made, about the facility, and I didn't have input. So, also what I'm urging for in the bylaws, which we will shortly be doing because they're very dated, I think I've included suggestions that I'm making on those, that it basically be a more, that we err on the side of inclusion versus exclusion, on all information. That's just generally across the board. So I'll give you copies of the email trail that I received from Eric and Bill and my response the other day.
so regarding the election of officers, the chair or president, or is the vice chair?
Eric Egal will be chair again,
representing Dolphin County. with the
Lenora
city.
Smith from the city of Harrisburg will be vice chair,
Right,
and
and our
Mike
representation from
will
the treasurer.
be treasurer. I'm also suggesting that the chair in the those three officers' positions be rotated on some kind of regular basis. I'm not saying every single year, but maybe every second or third year. And regularly rotate the chair between the three ownership, jurisdictions. Getting Commissioner Eichelberger's point about, not having, folks in positions for extremely long, periods of time. That's not to in any way question their abilities. It's a healthy thing, I think, to regularly rotate, those positions.
Any other questions or comments on this specific item?
I would just like to make a couple of points. First of all, I think as we move forward, consider, what this regionalization is going to look like, whether it's going to be functional or operational. I think it's important that it's being open, transparent, inclusive, and collaborative process, but not based on any one individual's judgment or opinion, but based on our collective judgment. And at the end of the day, this Board of Commissioners is responsible for whatever the financial obligation is that comes from this county. Having said that, I think it is important to take another look at this. I don't believe, at least my personal opinion is, that CAT should be moving forward with any major decisions with respect to expenditure of funds on capital expenditures that may or may not be necessary once studies concluded and so forth. So, that's pretty much what I have to say. I think that, I just received this, the commissioners received this in the mail here, I think yesterday or today. And it's a really fancy brochure about what all CAT does to serve us. And just reading from the first part of it, it says, welcome to Capillary Transit's 2013-14 annual report. The Board of Directors representing Cumberland and Dauphin counties and the city of Harrisburg has adopted a 3-year strategic plan now in its second year of implementation by new management. The plan is sweeping and includes financial, operational, and planning technologies which, when fully implemented in 2015, will make CAT one of the most efficient transit operations in Pennsylvania. I'm interested in getting at the truth, okay? And what's really important, I think, to our public is that we really are meeting those goals as enunciated by the chairman of Capillary Transit. And whether that's, again, moving forward with the regionalization or some other continuation of CAT and what they're doing presently, I think is the question we have. So, I don't know anything else to say.
Any further comment? Let's move on then, please, to item number 7, Mike Clapsaddle for this CAT board update.
Morning, Commissioners. Thanks for the opportunity to give an update. One follow-on comment to the capital budget item. I expressed to the full board back in January, and will again, should it come up before they're in receipt of the Phase 2 report, that, as our board member here just expressed, that any advance or action in regard to capital expenditures, especially in the facility, that any significant system or software should be, I think, only wisely withheld until the Phase 2 report is received, deliberated on, and the best course of action agreed to by both this board, CAT, and the other funding partners of CAT is decided upon. As a result of the follow-up to the first CAT board meeting I attended, I just want to take a moment and give you a couple highlights. CAT's operating expenses were reported to have increased 6.9% for the first half of the current fiscal year, ending December 31st. They're on the fiscal year July to June. I had expressed to the board and the finance director the trend of CAT's expense is increasing at nearly 7% is not fiscally sustainable over an extended period of time. Underlying my concern with a 7% expense increase in the 6 months ended December 31st, 14, is the realization that the 2015 trend follows a relatively high 5% expense increase reported by CAT in the most recent full fiscal year ending June 30, 2014 audited results. These ongoing concerning fiscal trends highlight the necessity for CAT to take advantage of an optimal cost-saving regionalization opportunity that's anticipated to be presented by the consultants in the PennDOT-funded Phase 2 report that's expected to be released in the second quarter of 2015. I believe the expectation currently is the first week or two of March that it may be publicly available. My calculations indicate, as I shared with you this board previously, savings potential in the first 5 years under an optimal Act 89 regionalization action of just short of $5 million for the aggregate Cumberland, Dolphin, and City of Harrisburg governments, with Cumberland County Sheriffs of savings in those first 5 years being approximately $1.5 million. Up to an additional $2 million of local, again, local meaning Cumberland, Dolphin, City of Harrisburg transit subsidy savings in years 6 through 15 are available under the terms of the Act 89 legislation. In such a scenario, with Cumberland County Sheriff's of savings approximating $600,000, or a total over the next 15 years, once an optimal Phase 2 regionalization action is taken, of about $2.1 million for thereabouts. CAT management has offered our share in the January CAT board meeting to present to you and all the funding partners an agency update. However, with the Phase 2 report due to be released in just the next few months, I respectfully recommend that you consider inviting CAT here to discuss their response to the significant Phase 2 report following its release. Thank you.
Any questions or comments? Mike? Thank you, Mike. Now, we will turn it over to Sandy for contract agreements.
Thank you, Larry. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to begin with calling on Justin Smith to discuss the agreement between GIS and the SRI software maintenance. Justin?
Good morning, Commissioners. This is a yearly software maintenance for Esri, our GIS software. We approved our software for assessment, vector control, planning, public safety, and GIS, so we pay it all at once. This is for software updates and administrative support. The cost is the same as last year. It's $22,978.
No increase.
It might be a little bit different because we restructured it last year to group everybody together. So a couple of them were prorated. So it's within a couple $100.
Any other questions for Justin? Thank you, Justin. Next, we'll have Wendy Shaver discuss the agreement between AG and Community Services and New Hope Ministries Business Associates Agreement and Diane Ward.
Good morning. Aging has 3 agreements. The first is New Hope's Ministry. It's a food bank. It must have fallen through the cracks. It's a 14-15 agreement that was never signed. The second is a business associate agreement with Geisinger, and this is a HIPAA agreement that would allow one of our staff members to review patient records at that hospital in an effort to attempt to not have the patient resubmitted to the hospital. It's a new position for our office, and we're hoping that that'll be a success.
So you're actually going to go to Holy Spirit and any of their satellite urgent care facilities and do that?
Correct. The third agreement is a new agreement. It's with Diane Gorley, who is retired from our office. She worked there for over 20 years, and we're asking her back in a contract status to provide protective services assistance approximately 2 days a week as that area has grown and we need additional help.
And where would the money come to cover that expense?
Aging block grant.
Any other discussion for Wendy? Thank you, Wendy.
I'm sorry, when did Diane leave town?
I'm
She's not
thinking
part of the
about,
voluntary separation.
no, about 8 months ago, strictly retirement.
Next, I'd like to call on Chuck Bear to discuss the agreement between adult probation.
Morning, Commissioner. Looking for your agreement for our annual rental for firearm training with the Hack Public Safety Center. It actually includes adult probation and juvenile probation. And once again, it's $160 for the rental of that space.
Any questions? Thank you, Chuck. Next, I would like to call on Wendy Hogan to discuss the agreements between Children who in Colorado River Family Advocacy Program, Children's Service Center of Wyoming Valley, and York County. Wendy?
Yes, well, Eric's Family Advocacy is actually a memorandum of understanding of how we interact with the barracks about abuse reports that occur both on the federal facility and in the community. We serve on that board, the Family Advocacy Board, and have enjoyed a long time collaborative relationship in these incidents. No money involved in that one. The second one, Children's Services Center of Wyoming Valley, is actually a mental health treatment facility. If we have a child who's in our custody at that facility, we are required to pay a room and board amount. The room and board amount is no increase, and it's by far the smaller portion of that. So we're simply renewing the contract to be able to pay that room and board amount when we need to.
What is that usually a day? I know I usually
It is
ask you this.
$65.52 per day.
I'm sorry?
$65.52 per day, but the treatment amount is $281.46 per day. That's covered.
$281 a day.
And that is covered by medical assistance. Okay, and then finally, the York County Youth Development Center. We hold 2 shelter contracts with the Praxis on South Mountain and Children's Aid Society in Chambersburg. However, on occasion, there's no room at those inns. So there was not. When that happens, we generally go to the next closest one, which is the York County Youth Development Center. They are more expensive. That's why we have a major contract with the other 2. Any other questions?
Thank you, Wendy. Next, Eric Ragovich will discuss the agreement between the district attorney and Dr. Ross H. Ludden. Eric?
Good morning, Commissioners. This is an agreement to bring on Dr. Ross Lowe, who's a PhD forensic toxicologist who's recently retired from the Maryland State Police, conveniently for us, lives in York County, to bring him on to help us develop, continue to develop our blood testing program to allow us to do more in-house work on DUI and DUID cases for drug and narcotic cases, and be able to become less dependent on us at our choice.
And questions for Eric?
You said he's coming up out of Maryland State Police?
He's just retired from Maryland State Police, but he lives in York County, lives outside of Dover, so he's a great client. He's local. Smart guy.
Any questions? Thanks, Eric. Next, Jeff Carroll will discuss the 2014-15 addendums to outpatient agreements for drug and alcohol. Jeff?
Good morning, Commissioners. We're requesting your approval to amend these substance abuse outpatient treatment contracts. Our strategies with these fee-for-service contracts each year is to start the fiscal year with a pretty conservative cap on the amount of funds, and then to adjust it mid-year when we get a better sense of what the actual utilization pattern is. We have budgeted a reserve pool of funds to cover the cost of this, so there will be no impact on the county's general fund.
Any questions, Jeff? Thanks, Jeff. Next, John Locke will discuss the 3 agreements between facilities management and non-union power systems, shared development, and trading as fire protection and PM associates.
The
first agreement, Commissioners, is Modern Group, and that's a preventive maintenance contract for the 911 generators. It's a 2-year contract, and the amount is $7,400. You just want me to continue going down the list? The second one, I just need clarification on this. I think this is, I'm working on a couple different KIN agreements, but this is the one where you already approved an agreement with fire protection and KIN purchased fire protection, and this is a addendum to have them honor the current agreement. Okay?
I think we're all looking at this little sliver.
Yeah,
So-
that's right. That's right.
Yeah, that's correct.
And PM Associates, this is the annual elevator inspections. The cost is $3,400 for the elevators to be inspected.
$3,400 to inspect them?
It's not only $3,400 just to inspect them. We have several elevators, and the state a few years ago required traction tests on the traction elevators, and every 5 years those tests need completed, and that's $350 a piece to complete those traction tests. So that's included in the $3,400 now. We also have hydraulic elevators. They were completed last year, and they're every 3 years. The traction's every 5 years. So that's included in the inspections.
Okay, does this include like all the elevators throughout the county? The new one over there, Claremont?
Yep.
Rehab, okay.
No, prison, I mean, there's like,
Yeah, how many we have in all?
How many elevators?
Yeah.
I put them on the spot.
here
You
in
can get back to me
prison,
later on.
About 15.
15.
It's just a mental math.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, next, I'd like to call on Holly Sherman to discuss the agreement between Human Services and Bavari Inc. Holly.
Good morning. This is an amendment to our master services agreement with regard to our wellness services. It's to adjust the plan year. Year one is January 26, 2015 through December 31st, 2015, and then the 2 years after that will be on the calendar year for the plans.
Any questions for Holly? Thanks, Holly. Next, I'd like to call on Mark Adams to discuss the agreement between IMTO and Center for Internet Security. Mark?
Good morning, Commissioners. IMTO is looking at a two-phase approach to improving our overall network security. The first phase is to replace our current intrusion detection system, which is Dell SecureWorks. That cost today is about $50,000 a year. So we'd like to replace that with a product from the Center for Information or for Internet Security, part of the MSISAC, which is a multi-state information sharing and analysis center. This service from them would be an annual cost of $11,530. The multi-state group of services includes all 50 states, over 500 local government agencies, and if we utilize their services, it gives us more visibility to government-related network attacks and intrusions. So, good service for us.
Any other questions for Mark? Thank you. Next, we have Sylvia Herman, who will be discussing a long laundry list of agreements for MHIDD for fiscal year 2014-15 early intervention, fiscal year 2014-15 intellectual developmental disabilities, and fiscal year 2014-15 mental health. Sylvia.
This isn't nearly as bad as it looks. These are all existing current 14-15 contracts. And because of changes to HIPAA and health protective information regulations, and due to the fact that we're in the business of human services and sharing protected health information, we needed business associates agreements with all of our contractors to allow us to exchange that type of information. So this is all just adding business associates agreements to all the MHIDEI contracts.
You're right, it wasn't as bad as it looked. It looked onerous.
It did look onerous. It did look onerous.
So in most of these, like if I was going to go down here and just pick out any one of these, they mainly might only deal with one or a few people. Is that how this works, or?
Well, for MH, that would be unlikely. I mean, it depends on the program and the level of need. For early intervention, some of those contractors may deal with a smaller number of folks. Say they only serve Perry County speech and language, that kind of thing. For some of the ID contractors, they might serve 6 folks, 9 folks in 3 or 4 different programs depending upon level of need. So some of the contractors are large providers and serve lots of folks. Others are very small providers and they serve 1 or 2 or 3 folks based upon level of need of an individual.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thanks, Sylvia. Welcome back.
It's nice to be back.
Okay, next we'll have Bob Shively discussing the 4 agreements for public safety. Bob?
The first one is a contract application to FEMA, Pennsylvania Emergency Management Agency. It is our emergency management performance grant. The application is in the amount of $91,264, and that covers a portion of Eric Horner's salary prior to his departure with retirement. That will be transferred to Michelle Parsons, and then a portion of my salary as the emergency management coordinator. And that is for the federal fiscal year of October 1st of 14 through September of 15. But their application runs later than the period. So the second one is for Emergency Services Marketing Corporation, which is, you might be more familiar with the term I am responding, which is what a lot of the emergency services use. That provides the direct link from the computer-aided dispatch to the phone devices, and we use that for the hazardous materials response team. So that'll be, it's $300 a year, and it's a 3-year contract.
But they don't do any marketing, this is a technical service.
Yeah, that's just the name of the company. It's strictly a software interface for the CAD defense. The next one is an addendum to the agreement with the Empire Friendship Firefighters Association, the firehouse on Spring Road, to house and store the hazardous materials unit, which is the larger fire truck vehicle. We had tried to store that for years at the training grounds, but the storage building there is not insulated or heated. And, some of the more expensive meters and testing tubes and kits were freezing over the winter months. So they have agreed to store it out there. It's $200 a month to heat, store, and provide power to the unit. And the final one is our annual renewal for the 911 center for the cross-reference phone lookup database, and that provides, last year we had reduced that in about half and went with just a CD version instead of the online active database, which the licensing was more expensive. So it's just a straight renewal, no change from last year, $1,540.
And that's for the full year?
That's for the year, yes.
Any other questions for Bob?
It's a good article yesterday on South Central Alert.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Megan did a nice interview.
You did?
So, yeah, thank you.
Okay, Bob. Okay,
Thank you. Let's move to item number 9, call and Dana Best, resolution 2015-2, budget adjustment.
CNRC is requesting to increase the capital and capital contract account by $400,000 for the Siemens building automation system.
Any questions or comments for Dana? Item number 10, request approval for M&T certificate of authority for receipt of charitable funds. Solicitor Brenneman.
Commissioners, this is a document that M&T is requiring to be approved for purposes of you receiving the funds from the estate that were already approved or approved by the orphans.
This is an M&T.
This is an M&T requirement. It's easier to just follow what they're asking than it is for me to debate with them.
And what would hanger.
Take the path of least resistance.
Yeah, okay.
I've seen them before.
It's a depreciation factor regarding here. We don't want the solicitor general to depreciate.
And once again, though, once we receive these funds, they're going to be held in reserve, and we haven't made any determination yet, with respect to how we might expend the dollars.
That is correct. It's in an earmark.
It's in a mortgage.
Account. They can't be opened without my key. And there's a meeting in March of stakeholders, including residents and their families and others, that will discuss the best way to use this. Thank you. Thank you, Solicitor General. Now I'd like to call for item number 11 on Brendan Waterman and Commissioner Hertzler to talk about the Affordable Housing Trust.
Good morning, Commissioners. There are two items. One is entry into an agreement beginning January 1, 2015, and ending 12/31/2020. Apparently, we had entered into a similar agreement in 2010 for 5 years of administration of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. I can go into some background if you like about the trust fund. I can also give you some details about some of the changes we made to the agreement, if that would be helpful. Okay. So in addition to some of the normal administration that we do on behalf of the county for things like CDBG, the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, we formalized our relationship with regard to first-time homebuyers assistance. Essentially, in 2000, the commissioners approved a $200 fee per closing. We have about 30 to 35 closings per year. And that was something that was being paid by the county through Act 137 funds, the recording fees. However, it never was formally reflected in the agreement or in our budget. The other thing that this does is formalize the timing for when I come before you with the budget as approved by the advisory board of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So for the last 2 or 3 years, I had come before the end of the prior year for the future year. This year, there was some confusion on our part about the timing of that. So we're coming to you now today to discuss the budget. However, I think in theory, you had approved a draft version of the budget earlier, maybe September, October 2014. And so this agreement really formalizes that arrangement where we come in and report out on the activities. Do you have any questions about the agreement? If not, we're also coming before you, the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Advisory Board, we appoint board members on a staggered 3-year basis. Yesterday, approved a revised budget. I provided you with a memo and with the budget. A couple of changes. One thing you may not know is receipts for recording fees had dipped in 2014. Actually, the beginning of 2014 was really bad, and then they began to rebound, which seems to be indicative of maybe the end of the time period where people are refinancing. So instead of assuming a $240,000 revenue as we did in 2014, we're assuming $180,000 revenue for 2015. In addition, we're formalizing some program income that has been coming in from loan repayments in the amount of $10,000. So the total reduction in revenue is anticipated to be $50,000. And we tried to keep in mind that down payment closing costs has been incredibly successful in Cumberland County. We've served 580 families to the tune of about $2 million since 1996. We made some reductions in service, although we think we will be able to assist people with emergency repairs. We will certainly be able to assist folks with access improvements to their homes through a DCD contract we entered into last year. Housing counseling administration reflects a reduction based on the amount of receipts we anticipate, the processing fee I mentioned, and finally any delivery costs associated with spec ready for immediately emergency contracts. So we would ask that you not only approve the agreement, but that you would also approve the budget for 2015.
Yeah, I would just add, this will help to reduce the length of my liaison report, but I've been working closely with with our solicitor and the past couple of weeks on this issue. I want to thank them for the cooperation of all the members, the volunteer members of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board. There was an agreement that we had, a 5-year agreement that apparently it slipped through the cracks. It expired at the end of last year, and that's what this agreement does, essentially is renew that agreement for another 5 years. And in addition to that, points out, it includes some of the things that have already been occurring in practice, including the program processing fees that have been collected by the redevelopment authority for the program for their work in connection with the emergency assistance program and also the first-time home buyers program. So, again, my hats off to everybody involved. Everything's under control, and you know, the budget situation, which is also now in this new agreement, essentially requires the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board and the Redevelopment Authority to present to this board for our approval the delineation of the end expenditure of those dollars, which is always included in the general fund budget. But what we have done historically is we've approved usually based on the recommendation of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board how those dollars are going to be allocated. For example, $130,000, even though there's been a reduction in revenue as a result of a reduction in the number of filings in the Recorder of Deeds office, mostly based on mortgage refinance. That's why the revenues went down. We've still been able to maintain in this new revised budget $130,000 for the affordable housing, for the first-time home buyers program. So, in any event, I think that pretty much covers everything. You know, and again, thank you, our solicitor, for helping us through this and actually discovering that the agreement had expired.
And is there any consequence to the fact that the lapsing of the agreement?
I don't believe so. Our solicitor reviewed the agreement, as did your solicitor, so I think we're in fairly good shape. The other thing is that in draft form, the commissioners had approved both the revenue and expense associated with the Affordable Housing Trust Fund when you approved your larger budget.
Could somebody like go into their outlook for 5 years from, well, last December, just make a note of that?
Absolutely. Yeah, that won't be missed again.
I did go back and I looked at, previous year's minutes before I became commissioner, and in several occasions what I was able to discover is the board of commissioners actually did not approve the Affordable Housing Trust Fund budget until the year of the budget. So this is going to kind of put it on a plane so that, we will, approve the budget in advance of the budget year.
As we've talked about, it's very consistent with how we do budgets. We usually make budgets on a 9-month estimated and actual. So although it would be great to have all 12 months to try to figure out what the budget would look like, we can estimate here.
So, anyway.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Commissioner Herzog. Let's move on to item number 12, Paul Kirkstone, or discussion of a letter to the Pennsylvania Historic and Museum Commission and the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation regarding Wolf Bridge project.
Thanks, Larry. I'll try and give the board a quick overview of some really detailed federal policy and how it impacts the Wolf Bridge project. As you're aware, we're trying to work on a replacement project for that bridge. We've been working on that since 2013. As part of the process, we have to do what's called a feasibility study. And that feasibility study evaluates if we can rehabilitate the bridge versus replacing it. That's required because Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act requires that if you have a historic resource that's either eligible or listed on the National Register of Historic Places, you have to go through this process to make sure that we don't indiscriminately dispose of historic resources. So we're involved in that feasibility study, working with HRG. We completed the first draft of that last year, sent it on to PHMC and PennDOT for review. One of the key elements of that study is establishing purpose and need for the study. So as we have established a need for that study, 3 key elements, one being safety. It's a 1-lane bridge that has safety issues. Also has a sight distance issue where you can't see across the bridge. So what we've seen is some showdowns in the middle of the bridge where one car crossing another car meet in the middle and see who blinks first. The second need of the study that we've identified is condition. This is an old structure built in the late 1800s. It's load posted. It's fracture critical, meaning there's certain members of the bridge that if they're compromised, we can see catastrophic failure of the structure. And the condition is not getting better. It's deteriorating. We've seen that. That's why it's closed. The third issue and the third need we saw for the project was connectivity. And, school buses need to use the bridge. As 2,500 vehicles per day out there every day, and there's also emergency service response that needs to be considered because the load posting can require that certain vehicles have to detour around the bridge. So as we look at those three needs, we need to compare them then against what the solution for our problem is out there. Through the feasibility study, I believe we've advocated, we believe a replacement structure, a two-lane modern structure that's weight restricted would best meet those needs. But per the feasibility study, we have to go back and evaluate whether a rehabilitation of that structure, given its historic nature, can meet those same needs. So there's back and forth that occurs. We finished the feasibility study. We received comments back from PHMC. The process takes time. The process is a function of the federal flavor of funds that we're using. Very grateful for those funds. We gladly accept some of the requirements that come along with this, but I think as we move ahead, especially with some of our other projects that move faster, we receive comments from folks in the community asking why is it taking so long. I know Commissioner Cross asks me that every time I'm here. So this is one of the issues that I think that does take time. It's this back and forth of a rehab versus a replacement. Most recently, I talked with Steve Larson and also Don Geisway from Middlesex Township. They're asking the same questions because they're getting a lot of feedback from the residents. Why is this taking so long? What are the issues? Covered those issues with some of the Middlesex Township folks, and I believe they're on the same page with us, that we believe that this two-lane structure is what's in order and best meets the project needs. Looking ahead, we are going to respond to some of PHMC's comments back to us in our original feasibility study. We'll work through that process, but we felt like it might be prudent to have the board go on record again and just state what our preference is for this bridge. Have that being supported by the local input that we've been given. Because at the end of the day, I think from the public's perspective, in some cases, they may believe that Cumberland County is dragging our feet on this issue, which we're not. We're working through a very complex process, but at the same time, I think we need to make sure that the input from the local community, the folks that have to live with a bridge that is or isn't there in the future, and the complications that come along with that, really should have a large voice in that process. So I think what we want to communicate back to PHMC is we're hearing from these folks, and what we're hearing is that really that two-lane structure is very important to them, and what maybe not as important is the historic nature of the structure. That, like our other bridges that we're working on, we want to preserve history as much as we can, but at the same time, we have to find folks that are interested in doing that as well and accept ownership and liability, especially for this bridge if we leave it in place or give it to someone else. And to date, we've seen no takers. Obviously, we're open to any and all offers that come forward. PHMC, some of the other consulting parties from out of state that appear to be interested in this bridge. I mean, we can cut them a real nice bridge on this deal if it's very important to them. But I think what we're hearing from the township, that maybe the historic preservation is as important to the community, and we want to see a forward-looking bridge program that solves this issue through replacement and doesn't really prolong the issues that we're seeing through rehab. But
and I think we explored that too. Was there going to be somebody out there to buy this? Was there somebody interested in sort of moving it somewhere else, or walking, bicycles, whatever? But the liability and everything else on that was just not there.
I just wanted to thank Kirk for, we have a draft letter that Kirk has prepared, very well done, for us to send to the Board of Commissioners. And I asked Kirk about this, whether or not we should be sending a letter, and especially after reading the comprehensive article that was done here by one of our enterprising reporters with respect to our bridge repair program. But I saw the commentary in that article from Supervisor Steve Larson, and so what this letter is about is essentially to demonstrate this board's solidarity with the representatives of the people of Middlesex Township who have been inconvenienced by detours now for about 1.5 years as a result of the necessitated closing of Fulton Bridge for safety reasons, and who are calling for expedited action on the bridge's replacement, as Kirk mentioned, with a modern two-lane structure that meets present and future transportation and travel needs in the community. The letter, as it's been drafted, pretty succinctly states this board's position, that while we appreciate the concerns of those who advocate historic preservation. Limited resources require that our focus has to be on meeting the safety and mobility concerns of our public first. And as it is the case with the Craighead Bridge, we welcome those who would like to save the Wolf Bridge for historic purposes, including those who don't live in Middlesex Township and those who live from outside of Pennsylvania, to step up and acquire and maintain the bridge through whatever funding sources they might be able to identify, as long as it's not dipping into the funding pools that we have available to us for critical safety and mobility bridge transportation infrastructure projects. The letter very clearly states first that rehab of the existing bridge would cost the county $200,000 more than replacement, and we could still be faced with a functionally obsolete one-lane bridge. And second, the letter states very clearly that we welcome the opportunity to transfer ownership of the bridge and the associated liability to any interested party at little or no cost. So in the meantime, I think what the letter does is urges our friends of the Pennsylvania Historical Museum Commission to wrap up their study as soon as possible. And then we look forward to working with our friends at PATS and PennDOT to help us speed up this bridge replacement and bring it to fruition as soon as practical. So those are comments, and I don't know if, unless there's an objection by my colleagues, I would be more than happy to move at this time to approve the letter and get it off to Pennsylvania Historical Museum Commission. So.
I think Don had done.
Commissioners, I came primarily this morning to let you know that the supervisors of Middlesex want you to know the support that we've gotten from Kirk through this whole process. We've explained to people that the bridge is owned by the county, but it's not the county's fault. But Kirk has gone out of his way on numerous occasions to help us convey the message to our residents. And the other thing that people don't realize, unfortunately it affects Cumberland County, the volume of traffic that comes down from Perry County headed to work in various parts of our county that used that bridge. And it has caused massive congestion, especially there as you go across Claremont and then North Middlesex Road and hit where you come out at the Petro, the Arby's, that area. Yesterday when there was that accident on 81, the traffic was backed up for a mile and a half up North Middlesex Road and then on around Tunstall. So our concern for our residents is getting emergency vehicles through if you have a situation like that. But I want you to know how cooperative and how helpful Kirk has been on this. I sort of remember back, I don't know how many years ago, Kirk mentioned to us that the county was looking at reviewing all the bridges and sort of starting the whole due diligence process with these historic associations or whatever. I was out of town last week, and what really set Steve off is when somebody at 10 o'clock at night came knocking on his door from his community wanting to know when that such and such bridge was going to be taken care of. And he said, that did it. But our stand is very simple. We want to replace our position with a 2-lane 2015 current bridge in the area. But again, we're trying to emphasize to people it's not the county's fault. So that's all I have to say. But again,
I think it is important that we shed some light on this. In fact,
we have to
at the Harrisburg or the HATS coordinating committee. We submitted a letter about a year or so ago about this. To understand that these are local decisions. These should rest with the locality. And in any event, I think anything we can do to kind of like get the attention and kind of speed the process along, that's what we're and I know my colleagues, Commissioner Claus has mentioned it on numerous occasions about how long it takes to get these projects done. And I've witnessed it as a township commissioner. It took with the Center Street realignment, which took an inordinate amount of time to realign a 2-lane highway from Center Street into East Bend Drive. And there's just a lot of hoops, a lot of hurdles, and, you know, can we get past this? I understand we're in the back and forth right now, Pennsylvania Historical Museum Commission, asking another round of questions, okay? Well, you know, we think, you know, let's get past these studies and do what's right for the people of Cumberland County. And so unless you folks have an objection.
I have no objection, but I have a couple of questions.
All right.
Don, are you guys also sending a letter?
We were waiting to find out a little guidance from you guys, whether you thought we should also send one to the commission. We have a draft one sitting there waiting. I'll tell them when I get back today. We're also encouraging, and I think you saw it in the article, our residents to handwrite letters, not emails, handwrite letters to the museum commission saying, hey, come on, let's get rolling here.
I just think having the county and the township
Oh yeah,
unified action.
totally agree.
Communicating that.
Like I said, we didn't want to send it until, you know, we were all on the same sheet of music.
Well, why couldn't we craft that letter with all 5, however many supervisors you have, signature from us and you?
Yeah, we just have 3.
So, if a letter can be crafted, I'm not sure where you meet next, it would come before us on Tuesday for signature, a motion, and send it with all 6 rather than, or if you want to do your own, that's fine. Is there
I
any
will-
objection to sending, we have sent documents with 9 commissioners in forward, so perhaps that.
We have one sitting there. When I get back, I'll check on it, and I will call my fellow supervisors independently, saying it's there, please stop by and sign it. And I'll get it into you. When's the next voting meeting?
Tuesday.
Tuesday. Try and get
Is
it
it,
into you.
in your opinion, is it better to have a joint letter or two blacklisted letters?
I'm not sure that it matters as long as everyone.
But he uses a little stronger language than we use sometimes.
No, I toned it down.
There were some unstated descriptive adjectives that you discreetly omitted.
When? Well, I cleaned it up.
But we knew what you meant.
This isn't an Army conference room.
Question, you mentioned this back and forth with,
Just from
Then we'll send
processing,
our, on
just from
Tuesday.
processing, what I was gonna suggest is, I mean, we could, I think both the letters go on at the same time, we can even stick them in the same envelope. But just-
Fine, I'll bring it in.
I think Kirk's done a good job with our letter, and
I do too.
can I finish my questions?
Yes. Right, producer, I think Commissioner Adams still is in the process.
All right, the back and forth process, is that something we've encountered before, and is that a standard thing that
Yes.
so they ask some questions, we respond, they ask some questions, we respond, and there's open-ended, there's no stated time frame for.
Yeah, there's really no stated timeframe. I think what we have to do is make sure the questions that they're asking, we answer them to their satisfaction. NFHWA as well. So HRG is working on the next round of formal responses back, and they'll be receiving those and work through the process. But I think, you know, others have gone on record, other consulting parties have submitted information. In some of the last meetings I was at, you know, I was expressing some of the local concern and so, well, maybe we haven't heard from the locals. Now I think we'll hear from them. We can have that information considered with
Does the conversation tend to, I mean, are they introducing new topics, or is it simply asking for clarification, more information, clarification?
Yeah, I think, you know, when you look at some of the concerns that the PHMC raised, you know, they're questioning the growth of the area, and then really they're stewards of historic resources for Pennsylvania. So, you know, they're doing their job, and when they see historic resources like this, apparently there's historically and technologically significant representation of an increasingly rare type of design in Wolf Bridge that they appreciate, maybe others don't as much, but they're supposed to protect that in some manner. So they're going to ask a lot of questions about how we can rehab the bridge without threatening that historic character of the bridge. At the end of the day, I think they even mentioned in their last letter back to us, quoting from the letter, historic one-lane bridge will never meet those needs, which are the needs that I outlined earlier. So I think they recognize that too. It's just coming to the conclusion that if it's not going to meet the needs, then let's not continue to look.
So it's not a totally open-ended exchange, they are on a path toward a decision.
Right. I'm hopeful with our next round of responses that we're working with HRG that hopefully we can get a final decision and move past this.
Are you aware, is there any resource in terms of, we had a discussion about, okay, we're going to make the bridge available to Is there a resource out there? It just seems logical to me that the responsibility for marketing that would logically lie with PHMC. They have more reach than we do as locals. Do they have resources they suggest to us, or what is that process for marketing?
Yeah, it's actually run through PennDOT. They put these bridges out on the internet, and folks can go on and look and buy these. We actually had a hit on Craighead Bridge not too long ago, some folks from Delaware that were looking at, that kind of fell through. But again, we're open to looking at those things in the future. I think what we've seen is the lack of serious responders coming back, wanting to take over ownership and liability, or the cost of dismantling and take it to a new location.
So the market for these bridges is infinitesimal compared to the supply.
Scrap iron.
So, so they're asking us essentially to try to sell something that's not selling.
And they're helping us out. I mean, I think PennDOT's helping us through the process. I think, all the times we've talked about, we've been very open. We don't want to just indiscriminately ruin these resources, but at the same time, folks that want to own and maintain them, they have to come up with the resources to do that.
That marketing process doesn't impinge on the project schedule in any way, though, does it?
No.
Okay, that's all I have.
Anyone else?
Well, just, so I have no problem waiting until that's what we want to do. One of the things we could do is just carbon copy or make sure our township supervisors in Middlesex receive a copy of this, and then, hopefully
I'll bring
through
a letter.
at your next meeting or sooner in sending it, sending a similar communication. Again, unless, I understand this is a workshop, so, I'd be willing to withhold action on the final letter until Tuesday, but just.
Does it gain any advantage by moving the next day or two?
Yeah, that's fine.
And then we could just copy our supervisor, so we'll get this out in mail on Tuesday.
We'll get it to you. I just want to go on record for Middlesex Township as personally thanking on behalf of our supervisors, Kurt, for all that he's done with this. You can imagine the volumes of stuff, paper on this, in my opinion, is not all that necessary, but Kirk has really done a phenomenal job with it.
This is not the only.
That's what I'm saying. I'm talking the whole program, not just ours.
He's balancing a lot of things right now.
You got it.
I would say two quick things. Number one, there's an inherent conflict of interest in getting historians to try and move quickly. Obviously, the longer they delay, the bigger the field they get to preside over. And secondly, in lieu of a cash bonus, this year Kirk is being given a custom set of bridge project decals. Thank you very much, everybody.
Backyard.
I'd like to call on John Law, please, for item number 13, discussion of capital project requests.
Okay.
You got a bridge to sell us.
The first capital project request is for Aging and Community Services. We're going to be purchasing 4 HVAC units, and the county's going to be installing those. That is in the 10-year plan, and it was budgeted for this year, and we're estimating $45,000. The next capital project request is to replace the shingled roofs on the Allen Road building, the aging building, and the human services building. This has also been in the 10-year plan and is budgeted for this year, and estimated cost $90,000. And that's the third capital request. Any questions on the third capital request is the human services building. There's a couple of rooftop HVAC units that we need to replace. They are obsolete, and they have been in the 10-year plan and budgeted for 2015. We're going to do the same thing we did at the prison. We're going to purchase these via, the county's going to purchase them via a co-source contract for a GSA, and then we're going to bid out the installation.
Any questions or comments for John?
New topic. Paving Richmond. When do you anticipate having that parking lot in better shape than it is right now?
The bid opening is at the end of this month, and it's already out for bid.
Okay.
And I'll be bringing that before you to approve either the whole parking lot or bidding in 5 zones.
Okay.
And it's out for bid right now.
Thank you very much.
And we actually had 13 contractors show up. So we have a very
That's
good,
Okay.
hopefully good.
Waiting for freezing weather to be finished, right? Yes, sir.
Pardon?
Waiting for freezing weather to be finished.
Yeah, the asphalt plant's not open until around April, and the project is due to be completed by the end of June. So it'll be up to you to decide on that right before you have to visit.
I would just say that my Honda Civic now is at mid-windshield when it gets down to some of the big
Well, the
ones.
speed bump, sorry, you gotta slow down.
Is that what that's?
Any chance of this being completed before June?
Before June?
Yeah.
Well, we've got to work around elections, so I've got to close it. I can't have any work being completed because of elections taking place in May. So I've already talked to the contractors about that, about there will be a downtime. Will it be completed before or after? Or we'll do a shutdown until we may complete that half, if that's appropriate. Before June?
Well, I guess what I'm interested in is, we have a lot of folks that, will be visiting the building on the night of the election, in terms of returning the ballots from all over the county. Any chance of getting it done before, all those folks?
In the pre-bid meeting,
In
the pre-bid meeting, I already asked the contractor that I told him about elections, and I also said the ideal situation would be to have this done before elections, this part, and then we'll do the other part if it's approved after that. But there will not be any construction being done to any of the river parking area during the election phase.
I understand that.
But if I can get that paid before that, I'll definitely try to do that.
Thank you, John. Any other questions on this capital budget requests? All right, John, why don't you roll into item 14 for advertising?
This is request to advertise the bids for the installation of the human services HVAC units that we just discussed, and also advertising for the shingle roof replacements on the 3 separate facilities.
Questions? Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Let's move on to item number 15 on Paul and Justin Miller, discussion of proposed plan 2015 household hazardous waste collection event, approval to send to the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture.
Morning, Commissioners. I'm here to recommend that Cumberland County hold one household hazardous waste collection event in 2015. And we do so by piggybacking on the Department of Ag's Chem Sweep contract, which allows counties to use their hazardous waste contractor to facilitate an event if they so choose. When you do that, the Department of Ag will pay for the disposal of pesticides. Something new this year, they're putting a cap of $14,000. Last year, we used the same program and the pesticide came about $9,500, so I'm not too concerned about that. I don't know, do you have a copy of the letter in front of you? Well, it's a short letter that I'll send to, if you give approval, I'll send to the Department of Ag. They want to know by March 2nd whether or not we're going to participate. If you give approval, I will send it to them. They will send back and say, you're approved to do this. Then at that point, I will contact the contractor who will write a health and safety plan for the event, and he will prepare a waste and cost estimate and send that to BEP. That then locks us into the 50% reimbursement from the state.
I don't think we don't have that letter.
No.
It's on the tablets?
It's not on the tablet. Well, the book part's not up, so.
It's just a short letter, basically saying that you guys approved utilizing the Chem Sweep contract under the Department of Ag. But I wanted to go over some of the costs with you. I have worked with the contractor. The Department of Ag went through the bidding process for this contract at the end of last year. It happens, the contractor that won it is the same contractor that had it last year. So I was able to work with them since they did our event last year to come up with a cost estimate. They're estimating $42,000, $74.35. That's not including pesticides. That's assuming $0 for pesticides. So DEP would then give us $21,037.18. Just yesterday, I received our annual sponsorship contribution from Advanced Disposal of $20,000. So that'll bring our total revenue to $41,000, or $41,037.18. So we'd be short a little over $1,000, but we have a balance from the last 2 years of our sponsorship fund of $6,342. So in the end, with grants and sponsorship, the event would not cost us anything other than our time.
And the location's gonna be? where you want
Location,
it?
I'll get Allen Road, I'm proposing, I have a tentative date of August 22nd, 2015, which is a Saturday.
Let me ask you this, workforce to sort of supplement this. Is there any liability of anyone coming in contact with any of this, I hate to say the word, and it isn't scientific, but this stuff, that would preclude utilizing, you know, as far as who may help unload what is brought in?
Yeah, well, I probably
thought-
defer some liability questions to Keith, but the vendor is the only one that handles the material.
Okay, he brings his whole workforce.
He brings
in.
an entire crew.
Okay, I pull up the car or the truck and they
We
unload
encourage
it?
you, yeah, and people will try to get out of their car, and we try to keep them in your car, so
Okay.
keep, stay in your car.
All right.
They want to get out and tell you the life history of the material and everything.
It's like facts, man.
Jiffy Lube.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that slows things down also, so we're trying to,
Okay.
keep them in, but they're the ones that handle the material.
All right.
And just FYI, the letter is, albeit quite difficult to find, is.
Yeah, I see that. So the question I would have is maybe, and I don't know whether our solicitor needs to take a look at this, but you're asking us to approve utilization of the Department of Agriculture's Ken Sweet contract and waste disposal contractor.
Yes.
I don't know whether that's something that our solicitor needs to take a look at, but, otherwise I think you're looking for a motion to do that on Tuesday.
Yes, and Keith
But we
has
used them before.
I looked at it before.
reviewed the contract in the past. It's very similar, the only thing that's changed is the pricing.
Okay.
I did look at the pricing, on average, the price went up about 6 cents a pound.
Just for the sake of clarity for the media and others, household hazardous waste would be paint, pesticides you mentioned, paint thinners, turpentine, what
Yeah.
else? Give us some others.
I would define it as, actually it's,
Oil-based paint, right?
oil-based paint, any waste that possesses hazardous characteristics, and oil-based paint because it's flammable meets that definition.
Motor oil.
Motor oil is actually not considered hazardous. It's a
Will you take it?
universal. We are not going to take it because of the outlets that already exist.
We'll need to get this list of what is.
Oh, yeah, this is just, I'm still in the planning phases. I'll be back before you, probably with press release if we
Yeah.
get your approval to move forward. But it's any waste that has hazardous characteristics. What's interesting, because it's being generated in a household, federal and state law do not regulate homeowners. So even though it has hazardous characteristics, it's still considered municipal solid waste.
I just thought some examples would be helpful. because,
Yeah. Oh, I'll have I can bring a whole list of the press release, but pool chemicals.
It's an educational process,
Yeah.
in case they weren't ready for now. just an
Oil-based
example.
paint, oil-based paint is our largest material we get. Pool chemicals, pesticides, oven cleaners.
But old unused fertilizers and things like that.
Yes.
Great, any other questions for Justin? Thank you, Justin. Commissioner Cross, item number 16.
Resolution 15-3. Yesterday, I was fortunate to represent CCAP as we had our press conference at the Capitol to outline the top priorities from the County Commissioners Association, voted on at our fall meeting, and the reform rewrite of the 911 funding and system legislation is the #1 priority. So in concert with other counties that have already done so, I'm going to recommend on Tuesday that we present our own resolution from Cumberland outlining the need for the rewrite of the Emergency Telephone Act. It is document that is with it holding a date of 1990 and looking for support to ensure that this moves forward rather rapidly in the legislators to ensure that the sunset of June 30th doesn't come and go without sufficient review. As indicated by the press conference yesterday, we are then tied to property tax to fund what is the delta from the subscriber fees to operating the 911 center. So about 54% would need to be made up, and we're looking into $2.5 perhaps $1 million that we will have to fund somewhere if this in fact sunsets without being addressed. So hearings took place yesterday. Commissioners again rolled out their priorities to include 911 funding as number 1. Marcella Shell was addressed as number 2, and human services, of course, was number 3. Those priorities are on the CCAP website and will also be posted on our county website. So this will come before us on Tuesday. Any questions on 911?
Thank you. Let's move on to Commissioner Liaison.
Just a couple things. Children and Youth is looking at a program called Strengthening Families, and this is geared for parents, families with children between 10 and 14. It's a 7-week program. It is free. It will begin March the 11th at the location of Grace United Methodist Church in Mechanicsburg. There are some flyers that will be made available if anyone is interested in that. Conservation District, I have 2 press releases from them that they've asked that I share. One is the District College Scholarships for 14-15 school year. The deadline for those applications is March the 16th of this year. The student eligibility is for high school graduates majoring in agriculture, environmental resource management, conservation, natural resources, forestry, and other related fields. It would be for a 4-year major or a junior or senior in college currently, or also associate degrees. That information is also on their website. The other is regarding the tree seedling sale that will be scheduled for April 16th and 17th of this year, and it will be the 38th annual seedling sale, so the information will be out there too. We all received information from the Historical Society with a request. They are going into a capital fundraising effort to seeking the community's help in raising $250,000 to accomplish phase 1 of their plan. They are requesting our signatures on a letter indicating support signed by the mayor of the borough. They're looking for signatures from Senator Vance, Representative Bloom, Representative Burrell, Representative DeLozier, their president of the board. I have copies of that. If in fact this board would wish to do that, that would be on the agenda for Tuesday's consideration. Outreach meeting this week, another accolade for planning department was held. It was great. Good turnout in Middlesex, and I attended last evening Upper Island's community forum and their town hall meeting on proposed development of a couple parcels on the other side of Messiah College. So are there any questions for me?
Thank you. Commissioner Hertzler.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I was pleased to be able to join Commissioner Cross yesterday at the CCAP News Conference at the State Capitol. And the reason I was there was been privileged to have been appointed as the chairman of the Assessment and Taxation Committee, which makes me a member of the board of directors of CCAP, I understand. But Commissioner Cross did an outstanding job in outlining what is the County Commissioners Association #1 priority statewide. There are a number of other priorities, as the Commissioner mentioned, but I think that there's no question that our primary concern across the state from the county level is that the funding stream for 911 has not kept pace with inflation or with the technology, and as a result of that, more and more of the cost is being borne by our property taxpayers. So, hopefully that's something that can be addressed before June 30th, which is the sunset deadline with respect to the existing fee structure. I also wanted to mention one of the reasons I was not at the last workshop sessions because I was attending a CCAP board meeting out in Pittsburgh, and one of the things that has not really floated to the radar yet, but we did have a discussion about it, is this new proposed constitutional amendment, which is potentially facing second session approval in the General Assembly. And it's an amendment to our state constitution that could actually, in fact, depending on how quickly the legislature acts, appear on the May ballot for citizen approval. And what this constitutional amendment is about is whether or not the courts or the legislature have jurisdiction with respect to determining what is a purely, an institution of purely public charity. There have been some recent court opinions relative to that. And why is that important or of concern to us? Depending on who you believe, whether it's the courts or the legislature, the fact of the matter is that we have in Cumberland County 1,962 exempt properties with a total assessed value of $3,900,000,000. And if all those properties would be taxable, they're currently exempt. Essentially, it would allow for an additional county tax of over $9 million. So the question as to what is exempt and what is not exempt is important because for all those properties that are exempt, somebody else is paying for that. Somebody else is paying for those exemptions. Now look, we've got government buildings, we have municipal buildings, we have school buildings that naturally are included in that total that would never, fit the position of necessarily being taxable, because essentially that would be, taxing ourselves, if you will. But in any event, it's an issue that, has bubbled up to the surface here. The County Commission Association, as a result of the discussion we had at our board conference, submitted some comments to the Senate Finance Committee. Senator Eichelberger held a hearing on this proposal. And essentially what our comments say is that no matter whether it's in the legislature's court or whether it's in the court's court, that we can't afford any further erosion of our tax base. And that's pretty much where the County Commissioners Association is coming from. And if you haven't had a chance to see the statement that was prepared by the staff of the County Commissioners Association, I'll be happy to share that with you. It was very well done. And some of the other issues I'll mention with respect to priorities, Commissioner Cross covered a number of them, including the maintenance of the Marcellus Shale impact fee. As far as the Assessment and Taxation Committee is concerned, I believe we've had discussion on this. I know yesterday the governor proposed a severance tax. Bottom line, I think, for our counties is that we don't want to see any reduction in funding for the things that we're currently receiving. And of course, a lot of that goes to the affected municipalities, but as you know, we also benefit here in Cumberland County with funds from Act 13 for bridges and also for parks and recreation and trails and farmland preservation. So it's going to be important as we have that discussion with the new administration going forward. Human services funding, there's a call again to restore the 10% cut that occurred a number of years ago, and that's one of our priorities, along with allowing any William County to participate in the block grant program. We also, again, reiterate that it's the Commonwealth's responsibility to provide funds for the courts. And one of our priorities, ongoing priorities, is alternative revenue options for counties, so that we can shift away from the overwhelming reliance on the property tax. So those are some of the things some of the other things that are the priorities for the County Commissioners Association coming up here in this new legislative session. Yesterday morning, I was pleased to be able to attend, and I know Commissioner Eichelberger may have more to say about this, but we had 3 representatives from the military installations with respect within Cumberland County, and they pointed out, they underscored how important these federal military installations are to our economy. And I think that, and I've been appointed as a member of the outreach subcommittee, which is going to be making the case at some point in time to our congressional delegation with respect to this issue, and also, I guess, to our legislature in Harrisburg as well. But the fact of the matter is that this should not just be about preserving and protecting what we have, but also pointing out the fact that when we do reach the point of downsizing our military and restructuring based on the new challenges that we have around the world, that the folks in Washington inside the Beltway look to the Cumberland Valley and say, you know what, we should consolidate and expand here. And a lot was discussed yesterday about the issue with respect to how well, whether it's the Navy Supply Depot in Mechanicsburg and the Defense Distribution in Cumberland and the Army War College in Carlisle and AHEC, how well they interact with one another to meet the primary mission of our military in this nation. So I think we've got a lot going on for us. Mentioned yesterday, 4,600 employees at the Navy Supply Depot, #1 employer. And I've said this for a while now. The federal government employs most people, in this county. So when we talk about public sector employment, we're also talking about it having a significant impact on our economy. And the contracts that the private sector gets as a result of those entities being located here. And then also was discussed, again, Gary might have more to say about it, the mutual aid that's provided, very important. Because they have the luxury of the Cumberland, with the Mechanicsburg facility of essentially having a paid fire department. That paid fire department, sits all of Hampton Township, and the same goes here in Carlisle. So there's a lot of benefits all the way around. So I was very impressed with that, and I think as we work on our economic development strategy, I think that that's something that's very important we keep in mind and work on. And finally, let me just mention that Aging Advisory Board met on January 16th, and I didn't get a chance to report on this, but they've reorganized. John Seaton has been reappointed as chair. Rachel McKinney is the new vice chair, and Ann Bullock is the secretary. They also have recommended an individual to fill one of the vacancies, and I believe this may be the last vacancy, although there might be still another vacancy on the Aging Advisory Board. And I will be, based on the board's recommendation, making a recommendation for our appointment of Vicki Elixon of Red Oak Lane in Shippensburg as to a new 3-year term and as a new member of the Aging Advisory Board. And I just want to mention that, as you're aware of the fact, I've been taking a special interest in the location and also the rehab of the old community center in Shippensburg, to be the new senior citizen center, and I've was down there for a walkthrough on January 22nd, and it's really coming along. It's going to be very nice. It's going to be a really nice senior citizen center. I know the seniors down there are very anxious when it's going to open. It looks like we're looking at early April at the latest. So probably make you folks aware of when that's going to be whenever I find out. But it's moving along, and the contractor there takes a great deal of pride in its workmanship. And so while the seniors are very anxious to get in there, the gentleman who's doing the work wants to make sure it's right, you know. So, but in any event, it's going to be really nice when it opens up. And that building, which was in pretty bad shape, is going to be a great location for all the seniors for their home for senior citizen center. That's all I have.
Questions for Commissioner Hertzman?
Okay, just briefly, a handful of things. The library system, we've all seen it already, but I just want to reiterate the 3 fact-finding sessions we've usually attached to our packet today that outlines the fact-finding sessions that will be held out in the public and that are going to be instrumental in feeding this information toward the future planning process that's in place for the library system. I did see that at least one of our media outlets had picked that up already and delivered some nice coverage on that. We thank you for that. We're hoping for good public participation and input in that, and there is a very impressive lineup of special guests and individuals who are going to be presenting as part of those, and they very graciously volunteer their time and expertise to assist us in evaluating the future of our library system here in Cumberland County. News release is attached. If any other media outlets need that, we'd be happy to provide that. We appreciate your attention to it and promoting that with our citizens. The next library board meeting is on the 23rd, so that's a week and a half away. We have, of course, Sylvia was here. We handled the MHIDD agreements. That's essentially the bulk of what's going on there right now. The next meeting on that is the 19th, so that's upcoming. Planning Commission scheduled for next week is canceled next week. So there's no planning going on. Okay, and I did attend the Commissioner Hertzer alluded to the military installations panel yesterday. It was, despite the Type 181, it was very well attended, and I think that speaks volumes to the interest level that is maintained there, and also the fact that we did have 3 senior command level officers there presenting to us in partnership, discussing not only what they're doing together, but the involvement directly into the community. And specifically, one of the main messages there is that there's a recognition, a growing recognition, that this is not a one-way street. It's not just a matter of what these facilities and installations mean to our community. It's also the value that our communities provide to DOD through our workforce and other infrastructure to help them fulfill their mission. Part of the goal of the installations working together is also to prepare for future base reduction and to look at capacity within the existing installations, and as well as doing mission analysis, so that when BRAC comes along and missions are shifted, we're not only potentially on the block for losing, we're also in the position to also potentially gain from other installations that may be losing missions. So we've had success as a region on that in the past, and that type of shifting certainly will be part of any future base realignment. So we want to be in that game and prepared for that when that happens. We had a lot of good commentary, I think, from people who were involved in some of the previous reviews as well, including Commissioner Al Beanstock from Hampton Township, which is the host community for one of our installations, and they've had a considerable amount of interaction there in recent years and have developed a very warm working relationship. That was essentially put on display as part of the presentation of how it should work as a symbiotic relationship between installations and their host communities. Earlier this week, I attended the Western Cumberland COG meeting as well, presented the county's information packet, basic outline of things that are going on, answer some questions on that. No issues in particular rise to the surface, but they are always appreciative of the opportunity to have us represented there. And in the future, we may want to consider that having an alternate might be a good idea, because several weeks out of the year, that meeting also coincides with our afternoon meeting, in which case I'm generally not able to attend the COG meeting, but they do appreciate our presence there, and they've made that Friday is the local elected officials component of the Workforce Investment Board, so I'll be attending that. Economic Development Corporation, we do have the annual meeting next week, the corporate meeting, and that is Tuesday the 17th. That is the Board of Commissioners that make up the corporate ownership of the EDC, and at that meeting, we will be acting on board appointments and reorganization of the officers for the Katy Board as well. Justin was here to discuss recycling. So we've covered that. And there is an upcoming board meeting for recycling, which I believe is next week.
I want to bring some Foshnocks here.
That's news.
Make up for
Okay, now we got something
last. Make up for last.
Is it next week? I'm looking for.
Yeah, Tuesday.
Tuesday, there it is. Okay, very good. I'll be there.
I heard yesterday, Gary, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I heard yesterday that some interest possibly in that. Do we still have a vacancy on the Solid Waste Authority?
Do we have any progress on?
Yeah, I've received two, and I had, that's on the agenda for the meeting to discuss. I've received 2 applications for that position so far.
Okay. So we're still accepting?
Yes, until, actually, I don't know why I put the 15th, which is a Sunday, but the deadline that was in the paper was February 15th. I'd be glad to receive, additional ones if you guys have any
I
thoughts.
just heard of there may be some interest from an individual, so I'll pass that information.
Yeah, please encourage them.
That's all I have.
Any questions or comments, Commissioner Eichelberger? Thank you. Report on executive sessions, February 2nd, 2015, at 2:15 p.m. regarding personnel issues, and further requesting executive session regarding personnel issues. Is there any other business? Hearing none, we're adjourned. Thank you very much.